We're here with your top 5 fantasy football takeaways from week 11. Let's go. The first one, kind of a somber note, because De'Von Achane exited this week's game with a re-aggravation of the same knee injury. He had 1 carry for 1 yard and 1 catch for 4 yards before exiting the game. Got you 1.5 points in PPR. Raheem Mostert worked as the workhorse with Achane out and Jeff Wilson as a healthy scratch. Mostert had 22 carries for 86 yards. De'Von Achane got the touchdown on a reception. It sucks because the running backs performed really well. I think Devon Achane would have been an RB1. The problem with this is not anything specific to De'Von Achane. The problem, or Achane, name's so hard to pronounce. The problem is that people will learn the wrong lesson from this. They're going to extrapolate bad takeaways. According to every single Twitter doctor, everyone, they all said De'Von Achane had more than enough time to be fully healthy. He was fully healthy, and he re-aggravated his injury. It happens. Do not avoid future players coming off an injury because this one didn't work out. What happened with David Montgomery? He came off an injury, 30 carries, was just fine. I guarantee you, I'm going to get a lot of questions saying, should I start Justin Jefferson the first week he comes back? Yes. Every situation is different. So we are not going to make takeaways about other players' injuries from this one. That would be a huge mistake. Now, in terms of Achane specifically, it is fair to wonder about his durability. It's fair. I still have him as a top 10 Dynasty RB just because the position is so weak, but I never had him in the high-end tier with the guys like Breece Hall, Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs. I never had him up there. And I think it was wrong for people to put him up there so quickly. I think he's explosive, but he's someone who should have limited touches, and I think that's okay. We have to accept that that's okay. I don't expect him to play this week, Friday, against the Jets. I think if it were Sunday, maybe he'd play, but Friday, I think, is too soon. I expect him to return in week 13. So, just don't make bad takeaways from this and think about it clear-headed and level-headed, and you'll do just fine. Next takeaway. The Jets finally have benched Zach Wilson like 5 weeks too late. For Tim Boyle, the Jets are garbage. Wilson, 7 for 15 for 81 yards, touchdown, interception, managed to take 5 sacks. Then Tim Boyle comes in, has 33 yards on 14 passes, and also an interception. Thomas Morstead was their most effective passer, 18-yard pass on 4th down on a fake punt. The whole Jets offense was an embarrassment. Breece Hall, though, he did get all the work. Garrett Wilson had the game of nightmares. 2 catches for 9 yards and 8 targets with a lost fumble. I will say that nothing can be worse under Boyle than it's been under Zach Wilson. This is way overdue. I'm probably going to still rank Breece Hall as a mid to low end RB1. Garrett Wilson as a borderline wide receiver 1, I guess, under Boyle. It's hard to rank him that low. Maybe Boyle will provide a change and it'll help. What I really think the Jets need to do is promote Trevor Siemian to the active roster and get him ready to play. Again, also playing on Friday against the Dolphins. I think it's too soon. Get him ready to play week 13 because I don't think Tim Boyle is going to be much of an improvement on Zach Wilson. But I'm just glad that the Zach Wilson experiment is finally over. Next, Sam Howell. He hurt the Commanders this week and the receiving weapons. Somehow he had 45 passing attempts and 255 yards, but he still didn't play very well. He had 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, took 4 more sacks. The Commanders have talented receiving weapons. It's unfair to blame Howell's poor performance on the lack of receiving weapons. Terry McLaurin is a solid wide receiver 1. Jahan Dotson is good enough as a wide receiver 2. Curtis Samuel, who was ejected in this game, is a solid wide receiver 3. Logan Thomas is a good receiving tight end. He's just okay. They have depth on the team. But when you have 45 passing attempts and 7 targets for Terry McLaurin and only 4 for Jahan Dotson, 11 out of the 45, not even 25% going to your 2 best players, something has gone wrong. Something is wrong. Sam Howell needs to involve the best players on his offense more. Terry McLaurin needs to be involved more. Jahan Dotson needs to be involved more consistently. The coaching staff has not lost confidence in McLaurin and Dotson. They're playing them every snap. So it falls on Sam Howell to get them more involved. If he doesn't do that, the Commanders are 4-7. The head coach is going to be fired. The general manager is probably going to go too. There's no guarantee that Sam Howell is going to be the starter in 2024. If he keeps losing and he keeps not getting those high-priced and high-drafted receiving weapons involved, he's not going to be their starter. So he needs to get his act together. And don't be fooled by the fantasy numbers. The fantasy numbers say he's great. They did for Jameis Winston in 2019, and he's never been a starting quarterback for an extended period of time ever again. So just because you put up good fantasy numbers doesn't mean that your real life starting job is, there for you. Let's move into the next one. Calvin Ridley. He came back to life this week, and boy, did he ever. 7 catches, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns on 9 targets, whereas Christian Kirk was reduced to just 3 catches for 48 on 6 targets. Evan Ingram and Zay Jones had 4 catches each. So I guess after this week, we'll have to rank Ridley and Kirk kind of close again. I had Kirk like 15 spots higher. Trevor Lawrence, touchdown regression came in his favor, 2 rushing and 2 passing touchdowns. And the one thing about this that I find so bizarre, but it's true, and I don't know what to do with it exactly, is Calvin Ridley only performs well when Zay Jones plays. He's had 300-yard games this season. All 3 of them are in 3 of the 4 games Jones played. He's been under 50 yards in all but 1 of the games Jones missed. So I believe 5 out of 6 games that Jones missed, Ridley had 50 yards or less. I don't get it. I think, it just has to do with the way the offense works. Maybe it's all more effective with Jones, and that allows Ridley more space to operate. I don't know, but Ridley seems to only perform well with Jones in. So we'll see what happens next week. But I was pleased to see this performance from Ridley. He was kind of circling the drain in terms of his value in redraft and dynasty. So he got out of there with his big game this week. Last one, another wide receiver. Jayden Reed is the most exciting weapon on the Packers. He had 4 for 46 on 6 targets, but he added 3 carries for 46 and 1 on the ground. Touchdown there. 69% of snaps. Finally saw more playing time than Romeo Doubs. And Reed got involved on the ground and through the air. And surprisingly, he actually leads the team in receiving yards this year. He's far more efficient on a per-touch basis than either Watson or Doubs. Better catch percentage, better yards per target. And he's pacing for 787 receiving yards over a full season, which doesn't sound great. But the Green Bay offense is nothing special. He's a rookie. And that's not counting any of his rushing production. He had 46 yards just in this game. I'm not saying that Jayden Reed is going to be a future wide receiver 1 because I don't think he's going to be. But I do think there's a world in which by the end of this season, Jayden Reed is the most valuable wide receiver on the Packers for Dynasty. And for fantasy as a starter, if I had to pick one to start next week, Aaron Jones is probably going to miss time. Emmanuel Wilson also was hurt. I don't think he's coming back. I think Jayden Reed has to be the wide receiver that I start. He just has the most opportunity to get there. So I'm excited to see this for Jayden Reed and excited to see what he does moving forward. Now, if you like these takeaways, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And additionally, if you want to ask advanced questions, you can sign up for the Patreon at patreon.com/fantasyadvice. And I have 7 questions today from the patrons, and they all came in through the Patreon Discord. So just make sure to click the link in the top right corner if you want to ask questions for future shows. With that said, let's get into question number 1. Is Tony Pollard back? He scored this week against the Panthers. He had 12 carries for 61 and a touchdown and 4 catches for 19. I'm going to say not really. The Panthers are the worst rushing defense in the league. So this is your sell high moment for Tony Pollard in Dynasty. In redraft, probably past the trade deadline. Maybe he'll do well down the stretch. But I'm going to lean no if I'm deciding yes or no. Is Tony Pollard back? What are your impressions on the rookie quarterbacks that started playing in the last 2 weeks? Aiden O'Connell, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Jake Browning. He's not a rookie. Tommy DeVito, Will Levis. So we'll answer for all of these. Aiden O'Connell, he's just okay. He's just okay. He's not a starting NFL caliber quarterback. He's not going to be their starter next year. He is an NFL backup. He is a solid NFL backup. He can come in and manage the game. but that's it. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was awful this week. They won, but he was awful. He's terrible. I don't even know if he's a real quality NFL backup yet. So for me, he's just not it. Jake Browning, he looked good with his legs, but I mean, going from Joe Burrow to Jake Browning is the downgrade of all downgrades. So the jury's still out on him. I'll give Tommy DeVito some credit. He looked good this week. He looked good against the Commanders, but I don't think he's a real thing. And I think the Giants will go back to Tyrod Taylor when he's eligible to return. And Will Levis, he played well in limited volume. He had 2 touchdowns, but he only threw like 17 passes. So I would say that Will Levis is probably going to be the tight end starter in 2024 because I don't know what the alternative is for them. But I haven't seen anything that makes me confident that he's any good. So we'll have to see. Thoughts on Trevor Lawrence's performance? Has he regained back some value trust, or is he a sell high? I mean, I never really had gotten off Trevor Lawrence. And Dynasty is not a sell high. I still have confidence in him. I think he's good, bordering on great. I don't think he'll ever be elite. I don't think he's really elite on the level of someone like what Joe Burrow delivered, what CJ Stroud looks like he's going to deliver. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is ever going to be that, but I think he's going to be a good quarterback you can trust for fantasy most weeks. I always said the touchdown regression was going to be in his favor. So, yeah, that's kind of my opinion. So in Dynasty, I don't know if he's a sell high. You have to get appropriate value for that kind of young, productive quarterback, and that's hard to get. Any worries about Kupp for redraft and for Dynasty? Not really. I will say if the injury is severe, then I am worried, but I don't know that the injury is severe. So hopefully he can come back soon. I mean, he is a 30-year-old wide receiver and going into 31 next offseason. So from that perspective, I'm a little concerned, but not really that much in the near future. Thanks for the heads up on Jaylen Warren. Last year, I got him in all my Dynasty leagues. I thought about making Jaylen Warren one of the takeaways, but he had that weird usage down the stretch where he was kind of off the field, even though he was doing super well. I do think for the future, just for the PPR upside and the more explosiveness, I ranked Jaylen Warren ahead of Najee Harris this week, but I had them. I think I had Jaylen Warren RB24, Najee Harris RB26. I think I'm going to have that spread a little wider in the future in favor of Jaylen Warren. And if I have to pick in Dynasty, I'm getting close to the point where it would be Jaylen Warren. I still have Najee Harris, I believe, just ahead, based on the draft capital. But, a couple more good weeks and Jaylen Warren will close that gap. They're almost equivalent in Dynasty at this point. Thoughts on Jayden Reed? We talked about this in one of the takeaways. Just goes to show I don't pick the takeaways based on the questions. Patrons can ask any questions they want. Yeah, I love Jayden Reed. I think he's getting more involved, and I think that has to stay. I know you're not crazy about the Vikings backfield, but Ty Chandler's getting a 50-50 split, and he's putting up points. Thoughts going forward? In the game that Alexander Mattison didn't really practice all week, and he, wasn't involved in the game plan, Ty Chandler still didn't outcarry him. Madison looked pretty good. And I don't think that, the Broncos, we'll see. They're an okay matchup. We'll see what happens going forward. I expect Alexander Mattison to remain the starter, personally. I don't think he lost the starting job with his fumble this week. We'll have to see. But in terms of the Vikings backfield, if it's a split, it's not going to be super relevant. I think that what'll happen is that we just won't be able to start either guy. I didn't have either one in the top 25 this week. And I think that'll be the same going forward. If you like the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If you want to ask questions for future shows in advance, patreon.com/fantasy advice for that. And of course, my main show every Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, right here live on the channel. But until next time, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all later.